What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Really excited to introduce you guys and maybe reintroduce to some of you Bryan E. Hill. So, big time nerd, expert screenwriter with credits including Marvel Comics, also executive story editor and writer for television, especially DC television like Titans on HBO Max. And we're going to get into some film lore, some best film practices, film inspiration, and just have a really awesome discussion. So I'd like to introduce you guys to Bryan E. Hill. Bryan, welcome.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. I'm not an expert screenwriter. I just do it a lot. I will say my agents would be mad at me if I didn't clarify. I was a writer producer on Titans, not a story editor. So they would get mad if I didn't say that. But yeah, I've been telling stories a long time, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, man. It's really great to have you. So let's dive right on in. Rapid fire origins. Where are you from, and how'd you get into storytelling?
Oh man. Well, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I was more of an English kid than a math kid. So I always sort of took to language, and storytelling and I didn't have like the worst childhood in the world. But my dad died when I was a kid. We didn't have a lot of money. I was a scholarship kid growing up, so I was receiving a decent education, but I never really felt comfortable anywhere, right? It's look, people have it much harder than me. But when you're a poor kid and you're going to a school where everybody has money and you don't, you're just kind of constantly reminded of your difference. You never really sort of fit in. And so you wind up building like an inner world because your outer world just wasn't really it. Even when I was in my teens, I was like, listen, this is just going to be not great until you're like 30. Like you're just kind of saying like, you know what, like we're just going to go ahead and wave a white flag on my adolescence here and just try to get an education. So
Mm-hmm.
I was always into fiction, and reading comics and thinking about it. I love filmmaking, love movies. I mean, back then, that was the window I had out. When I wanted to get out of the experience I was having, I watch a movie.
For sure.
Dating myself, but like I go to Blockbuster, and you get like the 2 for $5 or the 3 for $10 or whatever
Yes.
it is, and you just bring some films home and you just watch some films and being in the middle of the country, being kind of isolated, that was my access to the world, really. So I had an emotional relationship with films, and stories and TV and all that stuff. And then we were thinking about where you want to go to school and college and all that stuff. I was like, well, I kind of want to go to film school and try to make movies. And so I went to NYU, which was, pretty tough. Very expensive. Didn't have a lot of money when I was there either. And was able to, get an education from the school and also from New York City itself. Because New York is such a different place than St.
Mm-hmm.
Louis. Like, excuse me, LA isn't really that different than St. Louis,
Okay.
honestly. It's like if you took Hollywood and put it in St. Louis would be LA, right? Like the Hollywood of it all gives it a certain gloss and whatever, but that's just like surface stuff. You're still talking suburbs, strip malls, apartments, so on and so on, right? It's recognizable.
Yeah.
Manhattan is a completely different planet, right? Like it
Okay.
is not it's just not like it's a different sort of thing, right? Like the 24-hour nature of the city, the subway, the way that see LA has maybe a couple of industries that are here propping it up. Hollywood probably being, the biggest among them. And then that kind of creates other industries like highfalutin law firms and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
New York has a filmmaking thing, a stage thing. It has, high-powered lawyers. You've got top-of-the-line medicine. You've got financial brokers working Wall Street. You've got journalism, right? whatever your specialized thing is, the best of the best are probably somewhere in New York City. And none of those industries dominate what the city is, like in LA. So that creates a place where you can constantly reinvent yourself. You can sort of constantly say, you know what, I'm interested in fashion.
Okay.
And you can just meet people that are interested in fashion that don't care about any of these other things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and like if it's sports you're interested in, you still do that. Like, so New York is a place of limitless possibility, which isn't like growing up in the American Midwest, especially when you're black. Like I I didn't realize how much being black in the Midwest growing up was a little bit of a burden I was carrying until I went to a bigger city with more cultural diversity and didn't feel that same burden,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
Like you don't know you're carrying it until you don't have to carry it as much anymore,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So New York was a really invigorating experience for me. I went to film school, came out of that. And but when I graduated, it wasn't like now. We didn't have Ryan Coogler, when I graduated, right? We didn't have all these different sort of examples of storytellers, black storytellers that were doing things. So I figured I would just write because if you didn't know my script was written by a black guy, and if the script wasn't about black issues,
Hmm.
then I felt like, well, I could maybe get a job doing that because they wouldn't realize I was black until it was too late. It's like they would just read a script and be like, this is cool. Like, and then by the time they realize a black guy wrote it, be like, well, fine, just pay him 25% less or whatever. Like, like whatever the deal is, right?
Yeah. But you got them.
So I was like, I could take that. I could take the black tax, right? I could take that. So that's why I started writing, and eventually I sold a screenplay and moved out to LA, on the heels of selling the screenplay, and just kind of kept pitching and getting jobs writing, and fell into comics during all of that. And that's sort of how I built a career. Last year, I directed my first film, a horror film. We're
Congratulations.
finishing up post-production now. Thank you. It's this little, tiny little budget movie, 13-day shoot.
Okay.
Pretty arduous and brutal to get through, but we got through it, and I think we've got something cool. And now I'm writing a movie for Chad Stileski, an action film. I can't really say more than that.
Hmm.
Um,
That's the he's
and
the mind behind
I'm
John Wick, isn't that correct? Or am I confusing?
He's a John Wick guy. He's a John
Yeah.
Wick guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Congratulations again. Wow.
I'm a draft in on a project for him. And I'm also just working on a couple original things I'm gonna get out there, and I've got a couple projects to be my second film that are coming together. I've got some famous people attached to this and that, and we're getting the financing, and we're doing that. But hopefully I can get behind the camera this summer. That'd be great. And
Definitely.
we'll sort of take it from there.
That's awesome. I guess you have to be careful with IMDb. Are you allowed to confirm that you're attached to Bitterroot?
Oh, anything on the IMDb I can talk about. Things that aren't on the IMDb I got to be
Sure.
a little James Bond about.
Yeah,
But
respect.
yeah, so yeah, I did a couple drafts of that for Ryan Coogler producing,
Nice.
and I don't know what's going on with it. So for people listening, when you get hired to write a thing, you're really going to need to know basis. Like, they don't tell you what's going on with something. Like, you just write the draft, you get the notes, you turn it in, and then they tell you to go away. And you're a spectator like anybody else to what's actually happening with the project, right? And that's kind of how they prefer it, you know. So I capture the hostage, I turn them over to the authorities, and then the black van drives away, and they don't tell me what happens after that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And that is the comic book. If it is, I've only read the first issue. I think is that an Image comic? I forgot the writers. Do I have that or are you
Yeah,
yeah, is that correct?
that was David Walker and Sanford Green's book. So that was a
Yeah,
series that they did. I don't know how many issues they did.
I think
I
it's
want to say they
a
got up
lot.
into the 20s or something. They were doing a
Yeah,
lot of issues of that.
yeah,
And there was another script that had gotten written, and they wanted someone to come in and revamp. So I came in and revamped it a little bit. But beyond that, I have no idea, what's going on with it. Ryan was cool when I was working with him. He's great.
fire.
If I send him an email, he'll send me an email back.
Nice.
But I'm
Hmm.
also politically smart enough to not poke about what he's doing.
That's great.
When
That's
you know
excellent.
someone's not going to tell you something, I just don't even ask the question to keep them from having to obfuscate.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just keep it moving.
You know,
I love that.
like if they want you to know, they'll tell you.
They'll
If they
tell
want you to
you.
know, they'll tell you.
They will. There's something I picked up in my research that I wanted to get into. You said something about when it comes to getting jobs, especially for newbies, and I hope newbies and aspiring people, or even people in the industry further ahead of me, wherever you fall, take lessons and gems from this. You said something along the lines of be the, how did you say it? Be, where is it? You are the calm that nobody else has. You're talking about building reputation as you're moving up in film. Could you say more about that? And
Well,
yeah,
yeah. So I think people have this misunderstanding because a lot of people's understanding of Hollywood as a business comes from what they see on the internet. And if you use the internet, it gives you the impression that it's this really interesting place where all of these idiosyncratic personalities are, kind of all firebrands and getting together, and they're like the X-Men of making cool art things. That's not what it's like at all. I don't mean this in a political way. I mean this in a corporate way. Hollywood is incredibly conservative about its like behavior, right? And it's a place where everyone is always afraid. They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of not getting a
sure,
job. They're
of course.
afraid of the mergers and the things and the layoffs and everyone's sort of chasing a carrot because part of the business is about putting a carrot in front of you and having you chase it. And that's like if you're an executive somewhere, let's say you're an executive and you've got a high paying job, your companies could merge and you could lose your desk. Or like you could be associated with a film that cost a bunch and made nothing, and now that puts your job in jeopardy,
Yeah,
right? So everyone is kind of fragile is the best way I can describe it. So having a grounded quality, and being pragmatic and being focused and being prolific, it does help you, I think, sort of build a either a reputation or at least even just build a demeanor that that makes you someone they would want in the room, right? And then on top of that, if you're a minority, you're playing one strike baseball,
yeah, yep.
right? Like you just are, right? So like you can't be volatile, right? Like
No, no.
you can't have the rock star freak out moments because that'll stick to you in a way it won't stick to somebody who's not working out from under cultural prejudice or cultural assumption, you know? And so like I just tell people, yeah, like, if you can't keep other people calm, but you can keep yourself calm. And if you can keep yourself calm, then the people that are volatile, like that are like quick to temper and all this other stuff, like they're they'll they'll spin out and do whatever it is, but you'll start to gain a little bit of a reputation for somebody that's kind of cool under pressure.
That's great. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of was that scene in The Boys? It was The Boys, right? Yeah, where Giancarlo said to that one guy, he was like, "I'm a black man. I don't have the luxury of throwing a tantrum when we're off out of budget or when a super goes crazy or something. I have to kind of run this ship." You just kind of brought me back to that of just, I
Yeah, we
mean,
don't have the luxury of throwing a tent.
yeah,
Like, look,
go
I
ahead.
mean, look, the bottom line is if you're an African American in this business, they think you're not as smart. and they think you're probably quick to react. Now, how like cemented that idea is in the people you work with, I don't know. It could exist in the subconscious or it can be in the conscious mind. That's functionally irrelevant. It's just, it is what it is, right? So I tell people that I've been rewatching 24 recently, studying conflict and compressed
Okay.
time storytelling. But
Nice.
but I do tell people like it's a lot like being Jack Bauer. Like you're expendable. You're given a job to do. You shouldn't trust anybody, and you need to be calm when no one else can. That's kind of what it is.
Facts. Wow. How did you achieve that? Or how's that looking for you these days? You've been in the industry for a little while. What do you think about when you think back to when you first started out versus where you are now with being that calm?
Well, I mean, in a lot of it isn't just like sitting in a room and deciding how to act. For me, the ability to measure your personality comes from the amount of preparation you've done, right? So going back to like the Jack Bauer analogy, you can't just decide to be like that. You have to be as prepared as he is, right? And so
Yeah.
over the years, having studied the business, like the business of the business, like reading the trades and trying to understand the deals that are made and kind of seeing the moves of people and where their priorities might lie, right? Like a lot of any sort of high risk, high reward businesses, you got to anticipate what the person across the desk really wants because they're never going to tell
Okay.
you, right?
Wow.
So you need to be able to at least hypothesize based on who they are, what they've done, what they're saying to you. Like read between the lines, the words, and the letters, right? Because no one is going to be honest with you and tell you what they want. You know what I mean? Like that's just not how they operate. So you have to sort of like figure that out and kind of look at patterns and all this other stuff and kind of understand that the reason why someone may say no to a project or yes to a project, sure, it has to do with some amorphous understanding of quality. And I'm putting that in quotes for people just listening to me. But the word quality really is a combination of how good the storytelling is and how much it fits into a business model. Like you can
Okay.
write like you could write the best version of a $150 million sci-fi action thriller with two female leads. Like the best version of it. I mean, like a script that'll make you laugh, cry, hide under your bed and tell your aunt about it, right? That movie's probably just not financeable. The combination of new IP, sci-fi, two female leads, because they're all scared of like women leading a thing because there hasn't been consistent money made there. You just might not find a dollar to make that movie. It has nothing to do with how good that screenplay is. And then there might be, we see them all the time. We'll like go watch a movie and be like, that was not great, but the business model made sense on it, probably. Like you could cast a person into it, you could find a director to do it, like you could do this, you could do that, right? And I'm never saying that people shouldn't write the best things they can. You have to be writing of surpassing quality, right? You got to be trying to make the coolest things you can. But just
Sure.
understand that sometimes it's not the script itself, it's just the business model, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of people get frustrated because they can't get a result in a thing. And I'll ask them, like, what's the thing about? And they'll tell me what the thing's about. And I'm like, okay, well, here are all the reasons why that's difficult to finance. And no one's going to tell you that, right? No one's going to say, oh, this is a model or this or that. Like they'll talk to you about story. They'll talk to you about character stuff. Like people don't like telling you no because they don't want you to hold on to the no. So sometimes they'll just kind of go radio silent. Sometimes they'll just give you like a vague sort of, well, if you do this, then maybe, right? Because no one's going to really tell you no because they don't know what you turn into.
Okay.
Because if they tell you no and then you feel away about the fact they told you no and then you do something that makes you powerful, then you're going to be like, you're the person that told me no. So, it's a lot of just kind of reading, the Japanese call it reading the air.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard that.
And Hollywood is a place where, yeah, you have to read the air a lot, you know, like read the behavior of people. And I tend to tell people that people do what they want. When they want something, they move fast. When they don't want something, they move slow, right? No matter what they're telling you. When they want something, they move fast. When they don't want something, they move slow, right? So, yeah, and by learning all of that, and incorporating that, that's sort of allowed me to be, I guess, fairly calm about it. Because I do feel like I'm prepared and I'm pragmatic, and I kind of, face every business to business situation with as much clarity as I can, achieve based on what I'm able to kind of perceive.
What advice would you give people coming up, or even in the midst of their careers now, in order to cultivate that kind of outlook and attitude? Is it maybe, physical activity? Is it something you've read? Is it maybe a podcast you keep up with?
Well, gosh, I'm not anyone to give advice to anybody really, but I can give you some perspective. I think that one, it's really important to not have this business or this career ambition be your entire world. Do other things, and if you're going to monetize a form of art that you make, create art that you don't want to monetize. Like I produce music, right? I have no desire to monetize it, but I'll work with the singer, I'll work with a rapper,
Yeah,
I'll help engineer a track, help them build a hook, whatever it is. But I don't have any fiscal expectation on that process. So that's a place where I can create from a very pure place. I don't have to think about market considerations. I'm not trying to live up to a thing. I'm just kind of making what I want to make the way I want to make it. That's fortifying, in kind of almost like a spiritual sense, right? Because when you start, hanging fiscal result on the things that you're creating, there's always like there's a little ink in the water on it, right? There's always a little bit of, well, I would
yeah,
do this, but this is going to make it a little bit more than so I won't do that, or maybe I will do this. You're subverting yourself, right? And you have to subvert yourself in order to get along with a business, right? You can't just go in there and do what you want when you want, how you want. That's not how it works. If you have the juice in the room, then it happens the way you want. If you don't have the juice in the room, then you got to take the order, you know? But have a part of your life, your creative life, where you don't have to take the order. And that'll, I think, keep you tied into why you wanted to create in the first place. I think that's an important thing. I also tell people to don't be scared about treating the business like a business. Like if you loved hamburgers and they're just like the most important culinary thing to you, and all you wanted to do was have the best hamburger stand in the city, right? You wanted to make the best hamburgers for people. Well, you would treat that like a business,
for sure.
you
Yeah.
know. You wouldn't just make good hamburgers and eat them and go eat other people's hamburgers and talk to your friends about them. You'd be, looking at McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, the diners, the pubs. What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? Where's the meat come from? How much does the meat cost? Like, can we get better mustard? Can we get better buns? Like, what do the customers want? Like, you'd be thinking about it like a business. I know a lot of creatives get into, they sell a thing or option a thing or come into Hollywood, comics, whatever it is. They don't treat it like a business though. So they really don't want to research something. They don't want to think about price points. They don't want to see market trends. They don't want to really know what the individual festivals do because they all do different things, right? Like if Warner Brothers is going to merge with Netflix, if Netflix is going to buy Warner Brothers, you should be reading the business articles about that. Like you should be making yourself fluent in that. If Paramount has a competitive bid for the same thing, you should be comparing and contrasting what Netflix and Paramount are saying so you can sort of understand, well, what's the over under on each of them? What are the pluses and minuses on each of them? How is that going to affect my business? I tell people all the time, Like there's a book called Easy Riders and Raging Bulls, and it's a book about the Hollywood of like the late 60s and 70s, right? Back when Coppola, Scorsese, De Palma, Peter Bogdanovich, like William Friedkin, these filmmakers were coming into their like kind of golden age. Back then, you know, like the French Connection was a box office smash back then. Peter Bogdanovich would make a movie like The Last Picture Show. And if you haven't seen that, if you're listening to this, it's a black and white film. Jeff Bridges, Cyril Shepherd. It's a small town drama. That movie made a lot of money, right? There was a time when like the character-driven drama was a market driver, and the entire business was built around making those films. Then Jaws comes out. Star Wars comes out. And suddenly now movies can make a lot more money than they thought movies could really make. And young people were going to movies when they didn't really think young people were really gonna go to movies.
Wow.
So now the whole business starts to reformat itself, and they're chasing Jaws, they're chasing Star Wars, they're chasing Indiana Jones, right? And the business kind of becomes like the house that Steven Spielberg built with George Lucas doing his thing too. And that gave us what we now know as the summer blockbuster,
Right.
which changed the whole nature of the business. And so if you
Everything
were
changed.
standing in the center of Hollywood in 1975, Star Wars comes out in 77. Not sure when Jaws came out. But Star Wars is 77. And then you walked from Hollywood in 1975 directly to Hollywood in 1985, which is only 10 years later. We are in a completely different business,
That's wild.
right? What has
You're right.
value is different. The kinds of films that are different, right? And so like and it's so people I think don't realize that our relationship to cinema, to cinematic culture, to the fiscal realities of film and television, music, media, we think that the world that we aged up in has a permanence to it, but it doesn't, right? It just
Yeah.
doesn't.
Things change.
So I think the most frustrating thing for me to experience is the feeling of powerlessness, that I have no control over my fate, that I am waiting for luck, happenstance, charity to find me and bring me to the place I want to go. And the way I battle powerlessness is by just trying to study things from as many angles as I can. So that's what I tell people to do. Like, look at this moment that we're in and think about how it will affect filmmaking, how it's affecting filmmaking now, right? Like, if you took the comic book films away, what's a blockbuster? Like
Good question.
what's
Hmm.
what's really a blockbuster now, right? And so one of the things I think we should be thinking about is what happens when people don't want to see comic book films?
Yeah.
What are they going to replace that with, right? Like, and how is that going to affect things? So yeah, so I just think like treating the business like a business, and not like the Oracle of Delphi, and not like a lottery. There's a way to still create, still be excited about it, still make cool things, but also understand the marketplace that you're in.
Yeah, because and when you mention even superhero movies, it's not even just the immediate genre. I thought about like it's also IP, and that's just been so big the past several years. It's not just big and loud. It also came. It's like people are mining, nerd conventions and book conventions and these studios, as I imagine. And you have to find the material somewhere, and that's even lent something to it now where it's like, yeah, you're like, yeah, no, if the superheroes and everything went away, if IP, that's part of how I heard. Just like if IP went away, well, what is a blockbuster in the modern age? Just something interesting
Right.
actually to think about.
Yeah, and I just think it's important to think about things analytically. I think a lot of creatives, they sort of feel like the analytical brain takes the fun away from the creative brain. And I would urge people to not think that way, and to creatively analyze and just sort of have a sense of where we are, not based on what people are telling you, but based on what you are seeing, you know?
Yeah. That's really good. In fact, it makes me think like the obvious thing, one of the obvious things going around. What's your mindset around things like artificial intelligence? We went from like the example of, well, what happens if the big tentpole superhero movies go away? And what's your mindset around that? You express some of that. What's your mindset around things like experimentation with AI and filmmaking? Better yet, the Hollywood model.
Well, it's interesting, right? Like I've been tracking the progress of AI since, they had consumer-facing technology to really use. And no one really seemed to be paying attention to it, really, right? Until recently when the fidelity got a little better, and more proliferation of this stuff hit. And now you're seeing people kind of take like the deeper moral arguments against it. And there's a lot of shaming going on if you use it. And I understand where all that stuff is coming from. My perspective is there are certainly ethical problems with diffusion models the way diffusion models work, right? Yes, they are harvesting people's art and they are kind of breaking it down into the clay that other people can then build their own thing from with the via prompting, and that gives a whole, it that shakes the ground of copyright. It shakes the ground of, kind of artistic intention and artistic sovereigns. All of that's all true, right? And the discussion that's happening is a discussion that needs to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
The other part of me is just very sort of pragmatic and real. I've never seen people shame technology out of existence
Right.
in the history of humanity.
No, yeah.
It just never happened. I think nuclear weapons are a bad idea. They're not going anywhere. You know, like we will always have nuclear armaments forever until the end of humanity, right? Because that's how this stuff works, you know?
I
And
get
I
you. Yeah.
think regardless of the back and forth and the movements and the hashtags and the people getting mad about slop and the rest of it, look, the fact of the matter is corporate America has never not done the thing that's cheaper and easier to make more money. They are not in the business of ethical consideration. They have one overarching goal, and that is to increase profits and make more money for shareholders.
Yeah.
So
Tell them.
if AI gets to a point where they feel like it can do that, there will at least be some sectors that do that. You know, some kind of integration is probably inevitable. There's a human cost to it, there's a moral cost to it, all of that. But, I think that like, I was talking to a friend of mine and they were like, well, you know, John Henry could have still used a sledgehammer, he just should have made a train. And it's like,
No way. Someone beat John Henry like that.
you know, but
I've never heard
and
that
then look,
before.
so like, so like I don't know where it's going, and I'm not like proselytizing for it. I see all the problems with it,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I'm unfortunately like I'm like to keep up the analogy, I'm like the Jack Bauer in the room.
Yeah.
That's like while we're all sitting here discussing the moral complexity about what is happening, there is a bomb that is going to go off, and we need to stop it. Right?
100%.
Like
Yes.
the integration is like inevitable, and we're just gonna have to figure our way around this stuff. But you're not gonna be able to hashtag your way out of it. Like, do you know how
No, for
leveraged the
sure.
American economy is into AI? Like,
No.
this is what people don't get. The American economy is simultaneously in a recession and simultaneously propping itself up by the way they're over leveraged into AI. So if the AI bubble bursts, that craters the American economy, which means that the fiscal powers that be have a unified interest in making sure the bubble doesn't burst, right?
Yeah.
Which is what
Yeah.
the AI companies are banking on, is we have gotten you to over leverage.
Yeah.
If the bottom falls out of the industry, then you've created a crater in the economy, and the recession might get worse and worse, right? So like it's dark, kind of like how all this is all operating. So I think we just should like wait and observe, right? I mean, I would tell people to, if you're morally opposed to AI, fine, be fluent in it though. Know how it works.
Sure. Sure.
I'm not a big gun guy. I mean, I write action movies, and all that, but like I'm not huge on guns, but I know how to use one. I've gone to a gun range. I know how to clean one, I know how to fire one. I've
I
been
feel you.
trained because I need to understand it. Doesn't mean I need to own one, doesn't mean I'm in the
Understanding.
NRA, but I gotta understand it, right? I think it's the same thing about AI. If you don't want to use it, cool. If you don't want to, if you think there's like, if you think it's fascism or it's moral corruption or the polar bear dancing to hip hop just makes you mad to the core of your bones, like whatever it is, that's fine, but track it.
I hear
Don't
you.
don't just sit here, fold your arms, yelling at people on Facebook without really understanding what the capacity is, where it could be integrated, and how the integration will affect you. So, I don't have like a crystal ball, but I wish more people were simultaneously with their ethical opposition to it, were building a fluency that was just as strong. And that's not what I'm seeing. I'm just seeing a lot of people pontificating on social media about how bad it is, while I still see the proliferation of it and the potentiality and almost the eventuality of the technology affecting all media as we know it.
I feel you. Yeah. Seeking understanding. Um, this is also cool because it followed, I thought, very well what we were just talking about with mindset, with being that calmness, so is that you can just
Hmm.
what did you say, observe and make your informed decisions, both about your life, both and of course creatively. That's definitely why we were here talking. But these I don't know if I'm seeing a lot of conversations. That I'm not judging or critiquing. This is refreshing for me to just have that bedrock, to me anyway, of mindset. You're not preaching for, like you said, you're not going to hashtag your way out of it. You're not also wagging your finger at anyone for being emotional or being frustrated or confused, whether it's about AI, whether it's
No, I
about
get it. I mean, they're
yeah, yeah, go
literally
ahead.
trying. There's technology that literally has the potential to send certain large sections of the professional populace into obsolescence.
Absolutely.
Now, whether or not it actually has the ability to fully do that, I don't know.
Right, right.
But the people that are working on it, that is seemingly a goal, as stated,
Yeah.
right? So they're chasing that, right?
Hmm.
And and what I see is a lot of people are kind of resting in the fact that, well, it's AI slop, and the guy got six fingers, or this looks
Right.
weird. And it's like, guys, a year ago, we didn't even have AI video.
Yeah.
And now Spider-Man's fighting ninjas and it's largely coherent. Like, do
Right.
not wrap yourself in a blanket of it looks funny. Because there will be a time when it no longer looks funny, right? There will be a time when you will not know whether or not it's been artificially generated. And the other thing to keep in mind is, in the history of civilization, when has the consumer facing technology ever been the most powerful? ever.
Gotcha.
So you can guarantee that whatever you see Higgsfield doing, whatever you see VO3 doing, whatever you see Sora doing, whatever you see Runway doing, there is technology far more effective than that behind a door somewhere. Like we never see the technology advance in real time,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So like to look at it and be like, well, that looks weird and sloppy, and this is AI slop and it's soulless and no one wants to watch that. Bro, like no one knew what they were working at Los Alamos until it went off.
Yeah. No, you laugh. We laughing, but it's
Like,
true. But it's true.
nobody knew.
But it's true.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Like, don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
Right? There might be things out there that are fully artificially generated that have been out there for 6 months
Yeah.
and we don't know what they are because they want to see if we wouldn't know what they were,
Yeah.
right? So that little wonky Coke commercial that you can roll your eyes at and snicker at, or maybe there's going to be some ad during the Super Bowl where something looks gooey and funny and the frame rate is weird and you can get on Twitter about that. Cool. Something else is happening, and I just think we're just not having the more elevated conversation.
Yeah. In fact, so how do you I appreciate you're like, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know, you have your experience, you know what you know. Um, what keeps you going and not, actually falling apart about like, oh, well, they could, get C3PO to write the screenplay. They don't need me anymore. Or so, some people have been concerned about that. I'm not mocking it. I'm like, no,
Well,
I hear you because you're someone
I'll
in the
I'll I'll
industry.
just be I'll be completely honest, Josiah. Like, as a Black American, being disposable is something you have to come to terms with if you work at Target.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like we have to have different tools.
Yes. You
Like
got to look at it a little
we
different.
don't we can't afford to live in a world where we're indispensable because we're never indispensable. You can
Right.
be the president of the United States and someone's still going to call you an ape, right? You could be the president of the United States, but you
Mm-hmm.
still couldn't join a country club in Louisiana,
Mm-hmm. Or you got
right?
that
So
tan suit
like
on and, or just nitpicking. Yeah, yeah,
you put
yeah.
mustard on a hamburger and they're going to impeach you,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. You can't
So
rest on your
so
laurels.
yeah, yeah. And so like that's just like one of an army of things trying to destroy me. That you know what I mean? That like I can't even like I just gotta focus on my craft, do the best job I can do, try to make things I think are interesting and speak to people in an emotional way. And and just keep building that way. But uh, is when when people hate you, you don't have the luxury of fear.
Wow.
And so if you're a Black American, you don't have the luxury of fear. You can't move with fear. You have to figure yourself out and um just, put faith in your craft and your dedication to your craft and the quality of things that you make. Specifically with the AI thing, if I had to guess where we're going, I think you're going to see two verticals open up. Um, if the current vertical is, the way we've been making movies and film for the way that we make movies and film,
Hmm.
two more verticals are going to open up. One vertical is going to be hybridity, where you're going to see live action filmmaking with generative AI incorporated into that live action filmmaking in a seamless way you won't know. Very similar to how visual effects
Yeah, I was about to
work,
say, yeah,
right?
CGI. Yeah.
You know, that's probably the near term vertical. And then you're probably going to see another vertical of media that is wholly generated, with artificial intelligence and distributed, probably not labeled as such. And it's just going to be part of our media landscape.
Gotcha.
Like I would narrative filmmaking and all that, like it might be a little slow for that to really evolve into a thing where there's like an AI movie in a theater competing with a non-AI movie. But I tell people go for a walk in a metropolitan environment. Look around you. Look at how much disposable media surrounds you. Things that you see, but you don't look at. You walk into a mall and you see the video of the Victoria's Secret model with the lingerie like moving against the black background. And
Okay.
then you take a few more steps and then you see a poster for some mock-up jewelry
Yeah,
with like a lady in a bracelet. And you take more steps over. So like
that's
I
interesting.
think that all of that stuff, the most disposable media, I think will probably become more and more wholly generative AI. Which will severely impact a lot of creatives who make a lot of money to make that kind of thing. So like if you're H&M, and I don't know the parent corp company that owned H&M, I think the same company that owned H&M owns Zara as well. So like I think they're kind of owned by like a parent company and they have
Yeah,
a couple
okay.
fast fashion brands underneath that. If it becomes cheaper for you to just generate in-house whatever random marketing video plays inside your stores with, a small team doing Gen AI, and you can do that for 20% of what it would cost to hire a director, pay for models, pay for actors, hire an editor, do all that, you're probably going to do that. So like, I think that for Hollywood, for storytelling, you're probably looking at seamless integration of generative AI, similar to visual effects,
Okay.
you know? I think for if you're worried about fully like generative AI content, look at disposable media is where I first go.
Okay. We're gonna see now, won't we? All right. Um, let me see. Next, I want to get into you corrected me. Thank you very much. Can you remind us what your position on Titans was? And what does
Oh,
someone
not
like
even a big
that
deal. Like
do?
so I started off as I guess I was a no, I don't know what the bottom rung is. But I started off in the bottom rung, forgot whatever that is. And then I got to like producer level. Normally all that means is you just take on more of like the filmmaking duties on a thing. Not that you're like shooting anything, but you're just working more with departments. You're up there on set, you're solving some problems, you're just involved in more of the logistics of it. TV is very regimented, it's almost military in a certain way.
Yes, it
And
is.
it's kind of like the longer you do it, you just kind of get promoted and paid more, you know? So like filmmaking, feature filmmaking is very smash and grab. Like you can be a guy, like doing any kind of thing and or girl and you write a screenplay people want, and if the planets align, you can make a lot of money on that screenplay. In TV, it's more like you get a job, you work, you get a promotion, you work, you get a promotion, you work, and the longer you're on a show, generally, the higher you rise in the ranks. And so I just got to producer level because I was on the show for 5 years.
Wow, gotcha. So you just did okay. So you do solid work, keep your head down, connect with folk, and you can continue to rise up and continue to and maybe make more and
Yeah,
more
yeah,
impact.
like sure, yeah, for sure. And then if you want to like, develop your own shows and sell that, you can certainly like, have the ambition to become that person. But a lot of people have careers where they might occasionally try to sell a thing, but they just kind of work show to show to show, So there's TV is where there's the most corporate structure, I think, for a
Mhm.
writer in Hollywood.
Okay.
Um, Feature filmmaking is a bit more cowboy.
How do you mean? Okay.
Well, meaning like in TV, you can get a job. where you
Okay.
will work a certain amount of hours a week, and then you'll have a hiatus. And then if your show keeps going, you get brought back, hired back by the showrunner. It's more corporate, right?
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
a job.
You're right.
You wake up. Sometimes you have digital writers' rooms where they do everything via Zoom.
Hmm.
Sometimes, I mean, usually they want you to go into a writer's room, but that's like, you wake up, you make coffee, you walk your dog, you put on your clothes, you commute to a place, you sit in a room, you do your work. When the day is over, you commute back to where you live, and then you rinse and repeat that 5 days a week, right? That's TV. Feature filmmaking, feature screenplay writing is you kind of on your own time, right? Every day is either Saturday or Monday, depending on how you treat it. Uh, you could work tirelessly on a thing and not make it done. You could have a notion of a thing, but it just fits what people are looking for. You can make a lot of money off of that. Like you're like a bounty hunter when you're a feature screenwriter,
Okay. Okay.
and so I think, some people are wired for different stuff. Like I do both. So certain people only do one or the other. I know a lot of feature writers who they just can't deal with the writer's room. They just can't deal with the regiment and the commute and the boss, right? You know, and they don't want to feel like they're part of an office culture in any way, so they just don't want to do TV.
Yeah.
I know TV people that are like, I need the security and the steadiness of television. I got a kid, I got to put through this. I got a this, I
Yeah.
got to put through that, right? I got a
Respect.
house that I got to do this and that on. I need the steady. So I can't do the smash and grab kind of Michael Mann, Neil McCauley lifestyle of a feature writer, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I totally get it. So it's just kind of different personalities. Um, because I'm very kind of Boba Fett. I can do my own thing in my spaceship and try to get my credits. But if Lord Vader wants to hire me to do a specific thing, I'll also do what Lord Vader wants. You know,
Time and place, my lord. Time and place.
I just got a bounty hunter's mentality. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, that's kind of me. That's why you see me doing both things. But that's the difference between features and TV. In TV, you get more job security, but you probably have a boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a soldier in someone else's army, unless it's your show, right?
Okay.
And that's the deal you make. You trade your sovereignty for stability.
For stability. Okay.
Um, and that's a fine trade. I've been very lucky. Like the people I've worked for have been good people. Mark
Excellent.
Verheiden in Evil Dead, Greg Walker on Titans. These are good people. So they weren't hard. These weren't hard generals to fight for. You know,
That's awesome.
um, But in features, you have sovereignty. I mean, you're the executive on your movie is like your boss. They're going to give you notes. You got to do what they say. Like you're never just out there. But, you're either generating an idea that you think is powerful and you write it the way you want to go at it, or you're rewriting something in a way that kind of lines up with how you see it. And so they're paying you to rewrite it that way. You have a little more sovereignty, but you just have less stability.
What's something you wish more people asked you, come to think of it, about the trajectory of television writing and or film writing as a career?
Oh, well, I think in general, you need to know when you're out,
Okay.
and I'll explain. I think I think people oftentimes get into careers like this with this amorphous sense of destination, you know?
Okay. Okay.
And that can keep you chasing your entire life. I'm
Sure.
a little more like Neil McCauley in Heat.
Ah,
Like I want to go to Fiji,
yeah. Okay.
right? So like
Peace
I'm
out.
not
Yeah.
trying to rob banks the rest of my life.
Right.
I'm just trying to do a better score, right? And And I think it's important in any situation, even if you love it, even if you know I'm going to create all the time, I'm never going to stop being a creator. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Great.
Yeah, yeah,
Understand when, like, have a destination though. Like, even if the destination is to create forever, okay, but what does that mean? Right? So, like, me as a writer director, I would like to write and direct my own films that make more money than they cost so I could keep writing and directing my own films,
for sure.
right? But how much money do I think I need to make? Do I want to do them at 5 million? Do I want to do them at 25 million? Do I want to do them at 100 million? Like, those are all different ranges and all different goals, and it's going to affect kind of the steps that you need to take, right? So I just think that people don't oftentimes think about what end game is. And when you don't know what your end game is, it's a little more difficult to know what to say yes to and what to say no to. Because something might be an opportunity, but if you really play that hand out to the ace, that's not going to get you where you want.
Yeah,
And it's going to take time, and it's going to be as difficult and as rewarding as anything else you may do. But it may not get you where you really want to go. So, know where you want to go, know what you want to be. If you have an amount of money in mind that you're trying to get to, that's not a terrible idea to have a number.
absolutely. Yeah,
You need 5 million and then you feel like you're free? Cool. You need 10 million, you feel like you're free. Cool. But like have some specifics because if you let other people govern your trajectory, then you're just leaving yourself out there. Because the people are gonna urge you to do whatever they think is going to give them the most benefit.
absolutely. Yeah.
So
Don't
they think
forget
that you can
that.
make more money doing, yeah, if you love X, but if you love X, but you make more money doing Y, everyone's going to want you to do Y, right? Now, which is fine because maybe in doing Y, you make enough money that you can eventually come back to just doing X.
Mhm.
But you got to know you can run it like that. You can't just listen to people and expect people to have your best interest in mind because they don't. Like they don't have your best interest in mind.
They have their best interests
Right? They
in
have they
mind. Or
have their best interest in mind,
yes,
which may align
sometimes it
with
will.
your interests, right? But it's
Yeah.
it's it's a lot like living inside of a spy movie,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you can work with them because you both have an interest in stopping the bad thing.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that they care about your democracy.
Right.
That doesn't mean that they care about your life or your allies or whatever it is.
You're trying to get
There's just
revenge for your
mutual
brother.
need. Right. Like there's mutual need
Yes.
towards mutual benefit, right? So you need to know what you're trying to accomplish because once you either fail to perform that function or succeed in performing that function to the point where their self-interest is managed, what happens to you doesn't matter. So like have an end game. Get in there kind of knowing when you feel like you could be out. That's what I suggest.
When did you know what your end game was? You just told us you want to be able to make movies for a certain
Oh,
budget. Yeah, go ahead. You told us yours. When did
well,
you know?
yeah, I think why, I just looked at like the landscape of film, kind of the shifting realities of theatrical versus streaming and the rest of it. And it seemed to me like, okay, if you can make a movie between $5 and $10 million that is kind of in a genre, and has room for a couple really strong actors and a high concept, that movie will probably make more money than it cost, right? Which means that you'll probably be able to make another one because you made someone a profit, right? And you can self-sustain that because you're generating the things that you want to do. So you're not waiting on someone to give you a screenplay. You're generating a screenplay that you want to make, and now you're going out there trying to put it together, or you're going back to the people you made money for saying, hey, I want to make money for you again, right? That feels like a sustainable business model. So, that takes you out of the mother may I business or the will you buy or will you hire me or, that takes you out of the being picked lane And instead, you're like kind of creating your own actual business model. That makes sense. So once I started to kind of crystallize that, which felt like agency, that became kind of a specific goal. Not exclusively that. Like, still would be happy to write for other people, do the thing, whatever. But, just kind of building like a business model there. And so that gave me a lot of recent clarity. And so like directing the horror film I did last year, it's a small movie, it's tiny budget, no big stars or anything.
Hmm.
But it shows that I can get through a thing. It doesn't mean that suddenly now someone's going to give me $8, $9 million to make a movie, but it gets me a little closer into being a person that can viably say, hey, I did that for this. I can do this for that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's just, I just kind of I just focus it down on paper.
That's awesome. What do you think new screenwriters need to know about craft in this day and age? Like we were talking about AI, or we were talking about streaming. We got Disney Plus, and I just watch Wonder Man, stuff like that. But as far as like whether it's you have experience in film and you have experience in television, from a craft standpoint, to secure a job or to sell a script, what's your modern day advice these days?
Oh gosh. I mean, I wish I could tell people, here's the pathway to do so. The market's always changing. It's really hard to predict what will work and what won't work. I don't know what will work and what won't work. I will say this. I think based on my experience and based on my kind of history in the business and the people that I talk to, if you have a high concept action thriller that has two good parts for bankable actors, unfortunately, probably male bankable actors. Just I love female protagonists, but those you get a little headwind on that. So high concept, action thriller, two bankable actors, and a quick read, like written in a way where people get through the screenplay,
Yeah, yeah,
without having to wrap their head around too many conceptual things. I feel like that is at the very least a very good writing sample to show people like that you have decent kung fu.
nice.
Also, those screenplays tend to never really die, even if no one buys them when they initially go out, right? Like
Okay.
you may try to send them out. Maybe somebody buys it and you're lucky. Congratulations. Maybe not. Maybe some producer somewhere really wants to make it. And so that could happen. But if it doesn't, you're still sitting on something that's makeable at a bunch of different levels. As long as it doesn't cost like $100 million, right? So like
Yeah, I
you've got a
see.
piece of material that you can come back to, you
Okay.
know, that someone could just email you and be like, yo, so and so is looking for an action movie. Do you have one? Yeah, 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 I got this other movie. So I tell people like that's probably the best kind of general key for entry into the mainstream parts of the business. But I don't think that should be exclusively it. Like if you're passionate about, different idea, that idea, something's in your soul, get it out for sure. Like there's no magic bullet. But like those movies tend to float around a lot and find homes a lot, just being objective, you know, between like, the kind of stuff you see on streaming that you never heard about, but
Yeah.
like somebody's holding a gun. You ever turn on your Amazon Prime and you're like somebody holding a gun?
Yeah, I was, yeah,
It's
or
like, well,
Netflix
I
or
one of those, right? Yeah,
Spies
yeah,
or something. Yeah,
yeah. Or it could turn into like, like a more theatrical thing if you get the right cast on top of it.
exactly.
So those tend to, and if you have a smart one of those, it kind of cuts because there's so many generic ones of those, right?
Hmm.
That if you do have like a smart version of that, I think people are like, ooh, well, this is a marketable movie. We know how to sell the movie, we know how to put it together, and it's also kind of a smart version of the movie.
Yeah,
Um, so there's that. The other thing I would say is if you do have the rights to intellectual property in anything,
yeah. Public
build
domain.
something on top of that. Like, yeah, like if you have cool taking a public domain thing that can turn it into contemporary marketable. Make sure that no one else is like no one big's doing it, but like if no one big's doing it, write that script. Or you get a 6 month option, which is a small deal, on a comic book, like an indie comic book you like, indie video game you think is cool, like, you know, anything. My former agent David Boxerbaum has been having a lot of success taking short stories,
Oh, that's
many of them
awesome.
unpublished, but using like short stories to set up things as movies. And so like, IP,
Or
also helps for sure.
podcasts. What's it called?
Yeah, like narrative podcasts.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Rami Malek was in, was it Homecoming? No, I'm confusing that with something else. I think it's called Blackout. In fact, in between, I was on that show, I was a PA on that show Roar for Apple TV Plus, and in between setups and things, I was just listening to the episodes, and it might have become a TV show or something, or I don't
Yeah,
know.
like audio podcasts,
Audio,
like
right.
any sort of like any sort of IP that you can build something on top of, that helps because that gives it a sense of value. That's also a way for sure.
That's awesome. I also remembered, I wonder if this fits. I think it was after Breaking Bad, not long after Breaking Bad, between Better Call Saul. Vince Gilligan had a pilot script that got, I guess it went to series. It only had the one season, maybe half a season. I think it was called Battle Creek. I didn't see it, but it was a cop procedural, essentially. I don't know what made
Yeah,
it
yeah.
special, but it was like Breaking Bad had just ended, and I'm not a big insider, but I wonder if it's a Jake along the lines of what you were saying of some type of timeless story. I don't remember who all the actors
Well,
were,
it helps if you're Vince Gilligan.
and it helped.
But
Yeah,
yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
but it was an old script. I forgot to also say that it was for what it's
oh
worth.
yeah.
I'm sorry, for what it's worth in context to
There's
the
a
viewers.
those scripts can, that kind of like action thriller, action drama, right? I don't mean like action where it's
Okay,
like, action sequence. I mean something that has a bit more of like a dramatic edge to it, right?
okay, I
So
hear you.
there's some scene work in it. That's why I say action thriller, right? Like the difference I would say is broad generalization. The recent Running Man remake with Glenn Powell, that is an
Hmm.
action movie.
You sure?
Collateral would be an action thriller,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Tom Cruise, yeah, yeah. Michael Mann. Okay.
Those movies just seem to have long lives.
Good point.
I just feel like though, if you don't sell it the first time you expose the industry to it, you keep putting things like that together. You bump into this producer or that actor or this place looking for a thing here. Somebody needs something, key to lock. I just feel like those scripts have long lives.
So have those in your samples. What about if they're not action? What about just drama, character drama or something? Still find the timeless kind of
Well,
evergreen quality?
drama is hard to get out
Okay.
quickly,
Okay.
right? Just like, I mean, how many purely dramatic films do you see coming out in theaters these days,
Not
right?
a lot.
This
Yeah.
being not a lot, right?
Not, yeah.
So I'm never telling anybody not to write one of those, but just realize that that is a bit of a tougher market because adult drama is now the space of television. And what a lot of people would
Right.
tell you to do is, well, can you turn that dramatic feature into a television series and, cut the movie in half and make that first half the pilot, right? Like, is
Okay.
there a way to like, because drama kind of exists on TV.
It's true. No, it's true. You're right. You're right.
Not to tell
Um,
people not to do a drama. I mean, people do make dramas, but maybe you write something that you can make for less money, and then maybe you find a director that wants to direct the movie. Maybe they can help you cast it and finance it independently. Like if it's really a straight drama, you might be looking at building something for a Sundance or a Slam Dance or a Berlin or something like that, and getting something off of the ground and a more independent build rather than writing a screenplay for a studio to buy and finance when they don't really make dramas like that anymore.
no, I hear you. Okay. Um, define a staff in television, a staff writer for someone who is interested in writing for television.
Well, a staff writer is the entry-level position on a television show where you will do all of the things that are done within a writing room, breaking the story, developing season arcs, doing all the stuff with the showrunner. You will sometimes get your own script, your own episode to write. Sometimes they will partner a staff writer with a upper level writer in the room just to make sure
Yeah.
that you've got somebody with more experience with you to write the episode. And you're that's the job that you have. I think from a fiscal standpoint, staff writers don't get paid for the episode they write. Like they don't get the episode fee.
Okay,
So
episode fee.
when you get hired a TV show, you get the overall like hiring package where you get paid a weekly for being on the show. But staff writers don't get the episode fee for the episode they write. You don't get that until you're a story editor, I think. I think that's the next level up. And so once you're a story editor, you also get your screenplay fee for the episode you wrote, right? So there's that. But you do get residuals as a staff writer for the episode you wrote. So like you don't get paid additionally for the script, but you do get residuals in the episode that you wrote. So you do get that one fall back to you. But that's basically what staff writers, yeah.
Nice, because your experience with that, at least as of recent, was Ash versus the Evil Dead. Isn't do I have that right?
Well, both that and Titans. So I did
Okay.
a season of Ash versus Evil Dead, and I was a staff writer there. And then my first season on Titans, I was also a staff writer. Um, I just got bumped up to something. I mean, I don't know which level I got bumped. I got bumped up a level between one and two on Titans.
Nice. Well, what was it like? No, no, let me ask it like this. Some of my research, you enlightened me about a lot of things when it comes to fan outrage over an IP and how that falls into just how television and filmmaking is made. I'm trying to figure out how to ask it, but
Hmm.
it's like, how did you handle as a fan of IP in general, better yet, like, Evil Dead, DC Comics characters? How did you balance, well, this is what it looks like in the original movie or in the Titans pages that Perez wrote or something. And then this is what the studios have tasked us with writing. This is what the showrunner's vision is. How were you able to execute your job effectively as a fan? And what do fans of these things need to know? I hope I didn't overwhelm you too much with
Well, I'm
that.
kind of I'm kind of military about it, right? So if it's not my show, it's not my show, right? So like luckily I've only worked on two shows, but I worked on one show for the entire show. So I guess that's
That's a
like
lot of
six,
five,
7 years of
six years.
TV.
Yeah, right.
I
Five,
got,
7 years of TV.
I got some under my belt. But I never worked with any showrunner that wouldn't let you pitch like a different way to do a thing. But ultimately, you know, they run the division, right? Like all I can do is say, you know, I think we should pull surveillance off of this guy and spend more time at this location. And I can present the reason why. And then they take a look at it. And if they look at the information I gave them and they're like, nope, we're still going to keep the second level of surveillance and we're going to let location be lie. My job is then to do the surveillance,
Yeah.
right? Like, so like, I'm pretty military about it. Like I will speak honestly and openly if I think that not not protecting my idea of what a thing should be or even what a fan's idea of a thing should be. I'm really trying to protect what the showrunner says they want to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
So like if
Yeah.
you tell me what you're trying to do, then I'm like, oh well, this might be a more effective way to accomplish what you want to accomplish,
Mhm.
right? But like ultimately, if it's not my show, it's not my show.
Yeah.
So my opinion about what they want to accomplish is irrelevant. I only have opinions about how effective the strategy to accomplish what they want to accomplish is. And I just have to trust that what they want to accomplish is a worthwhile endeavor.
That it's going to work out. That the fans of
Yeah.
the show will respond.
And yeah, I mean, because that and the reason I do that is really, I know that can sound like a subjugation, but it's not. I mean, the reason I do that is it just makes it easier to go home at night.
And we, yeah, yeah, and do it all over again the next day if you're
I was
enjoying it.
joking
Yeah.
with I was joking with the showrunner, and he was like, do you want to run a television show? And I'm like, maybe at some point. And he's like, well, what's kind of keeping you from thinking you want to do it? And I was like, I kind of like the fact that I don't have to answer my phone. You do.
That's so real. That is
You know
so
what I mean?
real,
Like,
Brian. Yeah.
like
You
Warner
don't want
Brothers doesn't
show
call me.
you want
They
you
call
want to
you.
you want to they call you, bro. Like
They
so
call
if
you,
you want
pal.
you're in your what the Rock say, know your role, jabroni. It's like you're a writer in the staff room and you're like, I want these problems, not showrunner problems. I'm satisfied with
Right.
these, with what's on my plate. I don't want to pick off of your plate. I don't want your plate
I
right
told
now.
him, I'm like, you're the number in my phone that I have to pick up. You have 14 to 25 of those numbers in your phone.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
got one.
I love it.
I
It's
like
so honest.
having one.
I like having one. Yeah.
I like having one. You
That's
know?
awesome. It's so practical and it's so and here's why I asked this because my research, you really enlightened me and reminded me these things, it's a job. Like
It's a job.
there's nothing wrong with fans enjoying comics, video games, the original trilogy of the film series from 30 years ago, whatever we're talking about. But sometimes my research with you was reminding me, no, but these are people's jobs, Josiah, and they report to someone who has the rights to the property, who has the right to drive the ship east when the fans are like, well, we want you to go west, or J.R.R. Tolkien went southeast or something. But it's like, but when things are decent and in order, and the studio and the showrunner and people, everyone's assembled and things are running smoothly in the direction everyone is funded, when the writer's room comes together, or maybe it's not a writer's room, but it's a film, usually maybe 1 to 2 people ultimately maybe on the feature film. Your
Sure.
job is to show up and to write that thing, and you produce, you share and speak up. But it's like I really realize, like, wow, as the fans, we don't understand. It doesn't mean we can't. This is the age of, we're doing television podcasts and like things are being more demystified all the time. And sometimes we need to remember, not that it's your job, Brian, but we need to, as fans, we might enjoy products more if we remember the simple practicality of, oh, it's someone's job. They probably weren't trying to hurt your feelings by having the character make a different
Well,
decision, but they're allowed to make that decision.
yeah, and look, like try to think of a good analogy, right? Like you get paid a lot to do this stuff. You get a cool job. You get a cool thing on your resume. Other people have real jobs. They got to get up and they got to do manual labor. A lot of people have a job where they got to risk their life. Most people have a job where they can't stand the job itself. And, they're an hour commute in, 8 hours there, an hour back. They maybe have 4 hours of a day where they get to feel like who they are. A lot of people, they're living for their kids because the life that they have, maybe they never got there, maybe they never tried to get there, but they are where they are, and they're doing the best they can to make sure that their kids have a chance to do what they couldn't do, right? That's the American experience for most people. If I get largely spared from all of that, and occasionally somebody on Twitter is yelling at me, I'll live. You know, like if I get
Yeah.
to create
Yeah.
things for a living and someone's mad about like what T'Challa didn't do in the comic book, I'll live.
For
And
sure.
if that makes them feel better to express that because they needed to get that out because it mattered to them, then let them get it out, you know? Like, and all I can say is that very few times have I ever met any creative in any position of power that deliberately wants to make a fan base angry.
Hey.
That might
Yeah.
be the stuff for like, YouTubers that want to make money in the complaint economy, right? The
Hmm.
grand conspiracy of the evil executives who literally want to make your childhood have less meaning. That's just not real. That's not a thing. That is a YouTube thing. That is a thing that people say to make you mad so you subscribe,
Yeah.
right? Like of all of the people that we should be taking news from, none of them should have a wall of toys behind them. Like
You're gonna come for the
these are
toys,
not
Brian.
people who know what they're doing, right? They are there to make money,
Yeah.
right? They are there to get you angry. Look at the thumbnails. Look at how much good news is on those channels,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So like it's just not like that. Like, yeah, people like different stuff. That's true. And so you
Yeah.
might like a certain thing about a thing, and then they like another thing about a thing. And because they got the
Hmm.
power to do it, they do it the way that they want to do it. And that's not the way that you want to do it. It's not, they're not coming at you.
Yeah.
Like it's not a real thing, you know? Like, and but yeah, like you just have to like, I don't know. I mean, there are people who got to put a badge and a gun on their hip every day, trying to do the right thing
Yeah.
with other people dressed like them, just like them doing the wrong thing, and then everybody else thinking that they're going to do the wrong thing,
Yep.
and they're worried for 12 hours about whether or not they're going to get home safe.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not going to complain because Skibby the Doo Doo 65 got mad at me because of what I did in an episode of TV. Like, I'll live.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not that fragile, man.
Sorry,
Like,
not sorry. Yeah.
right? Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I'm
I've been
with you.
shot at. Like, I grew up in St.
Okay.
Louis, So it's like, like I've had guns pulled on me. I'm not gonna get mad because somebody is like, I don't like what Bryan Hill did with the comic book because I don't care, bro. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
didn't I
Yeah.
didn't want to hurt you. My bad. Maybe you'll like the next one. I appreciate you taking the time to read it. Thank you for taking the time. I'm
Yeah.
sorry it cost you some money, but like, you know, you gotta let that go, man. You can't you
Yeah.
can't internalize that.
No, you do. No, I was reminded of something Zack Snyder said about the Man of Steel. He got, a lot of flack, and back in the day it wasn't my favorite either, admittedly. But as I learned more, just a little bit more about the industry, both comics and film, it all summarized very well in something he told someone on a podcast. Well, just think of my series as a comic book run, since that's where all this started, right? Like you had, George Perez wrote this, Scott
Sure.
Snyder wrote that, Bryan E. Hill wrote, like, it's just when they're given the reins to write their story in Marvel or DC or Image Comics sandbox, they have at it. And some people will like it, some won't. I really do love how you said, like, now, trust me, guys, none of us in the industry that you love woke up this morning like, ooh, how can I crap on your childhood? How can I for money? No one did that. They just had something that they thought was cool and that their colleagues thought was cool. And they really, really probably thought you'd think it was cool. And it's a little bit of a roll of the dice, but
Well, I'll keep it a stack, right? Like, you know what I remember? I remember going to watch Batman versus Superman and not not enjoying it as much as I thought I would enjoy it while I was watching it, right? I do remember that. You know what I don't remember? Zack Snyder breaking into my house and stealing my Michael Keaton DVDs. He didn't do that.
no, he
I
didn't.
don't remember him breaking all my Christian Bale movies. He didn't do that. I don't even remember Zack Snyder telling me that I had to watch it. I just remember he made a movie
You're
and
gonna
I
watch
decided
this,
to go watch
Brian.
that movie.
You're gonna watch it and you're gonna like it.
Yeah. And It
No,
didn't speak to me as much as it spoke to some other people.
that's
Okay.
okay.
Like,
Yeah.
I guess the other part of it is I'm just gonna be real. I'm gonna totally keep it up. I'm a hip hop kid. Sometimes you just don't like the record.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Doesn't
right,
speak to you.
like let it go.
Yeah.
Like just listen to another record or listen to the older record, or maybe the
Yeah.
next record they make will be a record that you like. Like,
Yeah.
is the fragility of people is just a little like, guys, like the new thing doesn't kill the old thing. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, guess what? You can watch the episode 4, 5, and 6. You can watch that.
Yeah.
You can watch the 1, 2, 3. You can watch the 7, 8, 9. You don't have to watch any of them. You can watch the ones you like, and you don't have to engage what you don't.
You don't
Like,
know.
just let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, understand. I get it. It means a lot to people. It means a lot to me. Like, I'm a Batman kid. My dad died. I love Batman. Like, Batman was my
Oh,
homie, right?
rest in
Optimus
peace, man.
Prime was like my dad growing up because I didn't have one.
Ah.
I get it.
No.
I'm that dude. But I think that, like, I honestly think that we are a little, as a culture in general, not even just about entertainment, I think we've become a little entitled
I've been
um,
guilty.
to things being like the way we want them to be. And I don't just mean with like pop culture, I just mean in general, you know? And I think part of that is we have so much agency when it comes to what we consume, how we consume it, when we consume it. We have so much power of choice that when we're confronted with a piece of work that takes all of our power away, I think we feel that more than we did when I was a kid because we didn't have that. Like a movie came out, it was out in the theater. If you didn't see it then, it would take a year for it to show up somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
TV was on at a certain time every day. For
No.
young people listening to this, there was something called TV Guide.
Yeah.
And TV Guide was a periodical. You would
Mm-hmm.
subscribe to it. You would get one a week in the mailbox.
Mm-hmm.
And if you looked at the TV Guide, it would tell you what was going to be on and when it was going to be on. And if you didn't turn on the TV when it was on, you just didn't see that jump, right? It just didn't happen. So like, we didn't have any agency. Now you can watch 10 seconds of it, put it in the watch list, do something else, put it on, play the video game in your hand while the thing is on, kind of paying attention to it. Oh, wait a minute, I missed that part. Let me run it back. I don't care about this episode. Let me skip to the next one. Like we have all this power we didn't used to have. And I think that kind of prevents us, not prevents us, but I think that really makes us feel like, whoa, hold on, but you're not doing something I like. Every part of this process was 100% on my terms. I watched this where I wanted to watch it, how I wanted to watch it, when I wanted to watch it, 100% on my terms. But now you're doing a thing I don't like, and I don't feel like I have any agency, so I'm mad. So I'm gonna get my agency back. How am I gonna do that? I'm gonna open up social media and I'm gonna complain.
There you go.
But I get it. It's harmless.
Yeah. 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 It's just it again, you
We
you
got we got
don't
people getting shot in the street in America.
yes.
Like, what did Ed Norton say at Sundance? He was like, Ed Norton said the realest thing, man. Ed Norton was
Yeah,
like,
he did.
I'm sitting here promoting a movie while people are getting shot in the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
So
like,
it's
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, or like what did Denzel say? Like, we're just making movies, man. Like you want talking about real life, send your son or daughter to war or something like I think it was Hollywood Reporter
yeah,
or
like
something.
there's context.
There's
It's a movie,
context.
and but let me just say this. Let me just say this. I genuinely appreciate everybody, whether they like my work, don't like my work, who spent their money and time consuming anything that I created, whether it's a show, episode of a show I wrote, movie I wrote, movie I directed, comic book I wrote. I genuinely appreciate it. I don't take anybody for granted, right? And the fact that I have done something that matters to people enough that an absolute stranger will give me some kind of space in their consciousness, right? Whether it's treasured space or cursed space. They're going to give me some kind of space in their consciousness to take time out of their day to communicate how they feel to me. I'm kind of grateful when I see that because most people don't get that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
most
yeah.
people don't experience that. Um, so I can't be frustrated about it. And I appreciate everyone who spends their money and time, on everything. And you just hope that whatever maybe the next thing is that you do is more their speed than the last thing you did they didn't like.
Exactly. And yet nothing wrong. Like you were talking about, you love Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, we not flaming up all of y'all with toys along your like it's I don't have none, but it's like we're making fun, but at the same time it's
No, no,
like
I'm not. Look, I was that was look. If y'all can't take a joke, with as snarky
exactly.
as y'all are, don't even, don't even. If
Right.
if 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 thou denzians of internet snark cannot take one single joke, y'all need to get out the game because this is hip hop. Like you,
And
what y'all just got bars? Y'all only
right.
y'all can have bars?
Exactly.
Like is that how that works? Yeah,
Because
come on, man.
this
Come
man
on,
has
come on.
screenwriting credits. Okay, he does this. He does this. Okay,
No,
writing is in
and
his
that doesn't
blood.
mean that I'm right, and that doesn't mean that they're wrong.
Just for different perspectives.
Here's what it really is. Here's what it is. Like, people got to eat, and there are a lot of ways to eat. And there's a complaint economy. And the fact is, if you get on the internet and you have a YouTube channel and you're positive about everything, nobody's gonna watch you. Nobody's gonna watch you. You know? Like, so when people get mad at those people, I'm like, y'all, hold on. Y'all don't this is wrestling. Like,
There's a hero and a
like
villain.
they're just trying to make money, and the way they make money is attention, and the way you get attention is by irritating people, is by
Yeah,
telling people the sky is falling. Because if
yeah,
if if eight people are saying the sky is falling and one person says everything is fine, that one person's not going to get the views, and they need to get the views so they can get the ad revenue so they can make their monthly bills. You know, that's the economy of this stuff. So it's almost like there's a symbiotic relationship, right? Like
yeah.
it's like I'm sympathetic to celebrities that want to maintain their privacy,
Oh,
like being
100%.
out in public, like right. But like I'm also like you also get paid like $20 million to be in a movie. So if there's somebody taking a photograph of you at the airport, you know, like that comes with the $20 million. You know, it's it's sort of like that's like this was the business we have chosen. Right.
I hear you.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like,
everyone knows you, even though they don't know you, but
you
it's
want look if you want to
parasocial
be a
and yeah,
gangster, sometimes you got to deal with gangster stuff,
yeah, yeah,
right? And you can't always be gangster on your own terms, and so we just have to recognize like there's an economy, that there's a business.
yeah.
And I'll be real, like somebody hears this and wants to make a video complaining about Bryan Hill and they can pay their bills complaining about me, you have at it. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
you're welcome.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah. But this is that's really good because the cool thing that's what art does. It brings people together even over a chilled glass of haterade. It brings people together
Oh man.
sometimes. But then also
Yeah, man.
no, go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
No, just go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But
Finish that.
but it's like it's subjective, and I like what we started all of this with like mindset, observation, trying to be in some sense healthy. It wasn't just chasing the money. We all want to eat, but you're also expressing yourself. You're also connecting with people. You've made friends on your job. I've made friends at conventions and things over this stuff. And it is supposed to be bringing us together. You're not trying to be dividing people, but there's also nothing wrong if the book didn't resonate with you or something like that. Look, I know our interviews are not going to cure this whole thing, but this is our corner of the internet for the moment. So I thought we could talk about it, and I
And
appreciate everything you had to say.
and I don't dismiss it either. Like I'll consider the things people say, right? And sometimes I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. Maybe I should keep that in mind. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I hear you, but that's not really what I wanted to do. So, I try to use what's useful and not engage things I think take me off of my own personal track. But yeah, like, it just
Yeah.
bottom line, I know we're getting on in time. I want to keep you here forever, but like, look, entertainment is a contact sport. I don't know what to tell you. They hit for real out here. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like,
So bear that in mind.
yeah.
No, yeah. No, in fact, so my last two, because this has been great. This, and then the time flew. Whew. I miss podcasting so much. It's such a blessing to be able to come back and again to have you
Oh,
on.
I appreciate you sharing your platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. These last two here, you can get into them in any order you want. What would you like to say about mentorship, actually, what you've experienced with mentorship? And as I understand it, you, I believe, have some mentees or have mentored filmmakers and writers in the past when you had the time. And then also, you
Oh,
said,
yeah.
and then also recap here what you were talking about on X about emotion in the film pitch, because pitching is so important.
Oh,
So
okay.
whichever one you like to
Okay.
either mentorship or which one you want to tackle first?
Well, I mean, first on mentorship, look, I think every creative person, if you put them under the hot lights, can tell you a story about somebody that had some authority that changed their life, right? That affirmed something about what they wanted to be. Like I had, even beyond like my mother who worked tirelessly to make sure I had the chance to
Yeah,
succeed. I
love
had,
that.
had an English teacher, Carolyn Thomas, who believed in my ability to tell stories and that's that little nugget of belief that you need. Like we're all Dumbo needing a magic feather to believe we can fly at some point, right?
Great analogy. Yeah,
So and I'm not like a constant mentor or anything like that, but yeah, I mean there have been, there are occasions when I get some young people together and like they'll screen a movie and we'll talk about it and I'll kind of tell them, kind of break it down a little bit and get into like what they want to do creatively and that kind of thing. I think those things are important. I think what I learned after I had graduated from that hoity-toity private school, after I had struggled to make it through NYU with not really having enough money to go there. What I really learned is I was very, very lucky to grow up in an environment where people never told me I couldn't be a thing.
that's
They
beautiful.
didn't tell me I was going to be a thing. They never told me I couldn't be a thing. I never had that memory imprinted on me. And a lot of people, when I got at NYU, because I'd spent time in specialized environments. Like my high school was private high school, right? So like those were all kids that, were getting set up for life. And then NYU, same kind of thing. NYU is an expensive school. I was in the film program at NYU. So like, those are kids that have a support system. I mean, occasionally you get like somebody that wanted to dump their rich kid into a film program because they couldn't stand them. I mean, that was true too. But like, for the most part, those kids had a support system. When I came out of school and I really started talking to people, I realized how many people never get that, ever. How many people are told from the beginning that they can't. They can't do a thing, they can't be a thing, right? And there will come a time in your life if you want to do something uncommon when you will be the only person that believes you can do what you want to do, right? There will be a time when you are the only person that believes you can do what you want to do. And in those times, having that kind of support, having the experience of someone that you respected who accomplished some things tell you that you had it, that might be the fuel you need to get up after you get hit, to try to
Yeah.
fight again. And so if when I have the time, someone who might look at something, I mean, I'm nobody. I'm not like Christopher Nolan or Ryan Coogler, I'm a working professional in the business, right? Who am I? But if somebody respects something I've done or, means something to them, like something I've accomplished, and I can look at their work and tell them like, yeah, you can do this. And they know that I mean it in sincerity. Maybe down the line when they get into a situation where they're the only ones that believe they can do what they want to do, they'll remember that like some guy they respected said they could, and that'll get them back up. Right. So like I think mentorship is really important. That's why I think it's really important to have positive messaging out there and support people. Because if you tell people if you don't have authority figures that are telling you that you can't achieve something, that you're not going to think you can, then you won't. So I think that's important. To your second question about emotion and pitch. Well, okay, so pitching is pitching a story. So for those listening to this, pitching a story is when you have a meeting that's either digital or in person, where you will literally like tell the story that you want to tell to a person that is deciding whether or not they want to either buy your story or hire you to tell that story, right? That's what pitching is. So it's a verbal presentation of a narrative. It's one of the more stressful things you do as a writer because writers in general are kind of introspective. And you're literally asking an introspective person to perform, which is its special kind of cruelty, right?
Yes.
But like that's the business we're in. Now, I'm a little more extroverted than a lot of writers are, but I'm also a writer director and I'm a musician. Like I'm a weird bird. But it's a difficult thing for a lot of writers to do. So a lot of people are always trying to figure out like a way to approach it, how to do it, what do I say, how do I not say it, like how do I structure it, and all this other stuff. And there's a lot out there about structures, a lot out there about like how to say it and how to build it. And you can endless things on Google for that. What I don't think there is a lot out there is just the objective recognition that what you're really trying to do is emotionally engage somebody in what you're talking about, right? That's what you're trying to do. So I tell people treat a pitch like a campfire story. Like
I
you're
love
telling the
that.
story at a campfire, right? And don't like overthink it and overplan it so it gets all canned and feels weird and we've got the rhythm back and forth where we do the thing and the razzmatazz and I jazz hands, like whatever it is, like cool, like if that's your vibe, cool. But I'm fairly successful at pitching things. And what I always do is I just try to treat it like a campfire story. I'm trying to draw you into a world. I'm trying to enjoy the act of storytelling.
Yeah.
And the example I use about about kind of really tapping into enjoying telling stories, and I was trying to come up with an example, so because I read your question, I woke up and I was thinking to myself like, well, what's the kind of example that I can really, use to show that how I love telling stories, and so I had to go for a walk to like really think about how I was going to answer the question, and then when I was going for a walk, okay, see what I just did?
Exactly. Yeah.
I just started telling a story,
You just jumped into
right?
it.
I started telling a story about having to figure out the answer to how you told a story, right?
Yeah.
And you just start listening to me tell a story, right? That's what I mean.
Okay.
You know, like tell a story in an emotional way. Goals and obstacles. Somebody wants something. Somebody else doesn't want to get it to them. What happens if they don't get it? And why do they need it now? Right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, those are David Mamet breaks those questions down,
Yeah.
right? If you focus on those things and just kind of share your story with people, I like to try to get the executive out of executive mode. Like
That's great.
it's there's an ugliness to the seller buyer relationship. You're coming in there because you want to get a job to get the money. They know you're coming in there because you want a job to get the money, and they got the pressure on whether or not they're going to give you the job to get the money. That's ugly.
Yeah,
That is
straight up.
not the best dynamic for two human beings to be in a room together, digitally or otherwise.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is take the ugliness out of it by just telling them a story and genuinely enjoying the fact that I'm telling them a story. Because whether or not they buy that story or don't buy that story, whether or not it fits or it doesn't fit, they're going to have a good experience. And that comes back to you one way or another. they're gonna like someone who might be totally unlikable just might have the exact ideas they're looking for this one project. Cool. But if you give them a good experience and they just like the vibe of it and you were telling the story and you were drawing them in, they're gonna remember that and they're gonna come back to you with a thing, or maybe you come back to them with a thing, like
Yeah.
it'll come back on you. So like that's what I said, campfire story. Like you're not Jor-El trying to convince them that Krypton will explode. Like get out of that mentality.
Yeah,
You
that's a
know,
great example. Yeah, yeah. It's
like
not
you're not a
that kind of
trial
thing.
lawyer.
Yeah.
That's not the vibe. You're not Jim Garrison trying to convince them that Kennedy was shot in a conspiracy. Like you're not, you're with the flow charts and your bullet points and thing and all that. You're not really that. You're telling them a story.
Yeah.
And so be a storyteller. So like that's what I mean. Connect with them on a human level, connect with what you're saying on a human level, and see if you guys vibe, and enjoy that.
Because when they buy the story, if you slam dunk it, for lack of a better term, are they also buying you? Because in a good way, because like if you get them out of executive mode, I wonder, did they not just love your story, but they loved you
Well,
in that
okay,
moment?
so that's a really good point. So I'm going to answer your question specifically, but I'm going to approach it macrocosmically as well.
Okay,
One thing, executives are people, right? Like
go
we tend
figure.
to not we like creatives tend to dehumanize them because they have the power in the dynamic, but they're people. They come in all,
Yeah,
stripes and colors. They come in all types of demeanors. Some of them you're going to really like, some of them you're not going to like at all. Some of them are going to have really insightful ideas that you're going to spark to that are going to make your story better. Some of them, frankly, aren't. And you're just going to have to make those ideas better than they were when they came to you. But they're just like folks. So they're people. Yeah, they got a job. And that job can give you a bunch of money or not give you that opportunity. That's true. That dynamic does exist.
yeah, yeah.
But you're still talking like on a human to kind of, human level, right? And nobody wants to get into a working relationship with someone that's unlikable,
No, not at all. Not a chance.
right? That's never a benefit.
Yeah.
So you're not going to win a job because your personality. Like they're not going to like ultimately whatever story fits whatever their like generally you're not pitching to their boss.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
like that's you're never meeting with the top of a thing unless you're like a top of a thing person, right? So
Gotcha.
generally you're pitching to someone that has a boss, right? You're not pitching to the president, you're pitching to the Secretary of State. You're pitching to the Secretary of Defense, right?
Yeah.
You're not pitching, only a few people get to walk into the Oval Office. So generally what's happening is you're presenting something to an intermediary who has authority. That intermediary with authority is then presenting that to the ultimate decision maker, right?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes the person you're pitching to has been given decision-making authority for that project. They may have the ability to buy a thing in that room, but in general, they got a boss too, right? So they're a human being, they got wants and needs just like you have wants and needs. They're trying to bring a win to the place that they work, right? And you want to bring them that win. And I think it helps if you're someone that seems like, okay, like you'll take a note and you won't take it personally, or you were prepared coming into this meeting. You seem like you genuinely enjoy what you're doing. You seem like you're realistic about, certain expectations about speed or preeminence or whatever it is, right? Like I'm not going to deflate you with the reality of the business. Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's not going to get you over the line more than like the story will. But yeah, it generally like people want to work with people that seemingly are easier to work with for sure.
That's awesome. And the way you were talking about, like, well, you're telling a story, it's like, well, yeah, go figure. Like, there's a storytellers, in the pitch room. and how you were like, you see how I did that there? I had to think about I began to tell you the story of how to answer the question about, well, how do you and it was immersive and you just kind of pulled me in. It even, I hope it's connected, it even reminded me of I forgot the actress's name, but she plays Karen on Daredevil, Netflix Disney Plus Daredevil. And
Oh yeah,
apparently,
yeah, yeah. Deborah.
have you seen that? Deborah? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
Deborah Ann Wool.
Yeah, maybe you've seen the clip. Maybe some of you guys watching the podcast too. She was on someone's podcast, and apparently she's like a big dungeon master in D&D in
She's
her
a
free
huge.
time.
Okay, so I met Deborah on a business thing, and
On
she's a
fire.
wonderful person.
Awesome.
She's super, super cool. We were meeting about a project. That project didn't come together, but I liked her a lot. We talked for an hour. She's just a genuine human being, Deborah Hamill. And yes, she's huge in the D&D. Loves playing D&D, Dungeon Master stuff. It's like a big thing for her.
That's fire. And so you know where I'm going, where she, the host of a show she was invited on, they just didn't understand D&D, but they were very curious. And she began to just weave a story in like maybe 5 minutes or less, giving them decisions. And if this happens, then that happens. Or like you said, the character wants this, but these forces are in the way. Are they going to succeed? Are they? And she's like, that's Dungeons and Dragons, my friend. We just gather around. We have some pieces and we have some visuals that advance it, but we're telling a story together and we're engaging in it. That came to mind when you were talking
Yeah.
about success when pitching.
Well,
Maybe it's similar. Maybe.
yeah, I hate salesmen and I hate selling, right? I
Oh
just
yeah.
think it's rude. I find it rude, right? But I do like sharing things I'm genuinely excited about with people that I think might be able to solve the problem they have, which is why I'm in the room, right? The other thing to remember is you're in the room with them because they're trying to solve a problem. They may not think you're the solution to the problem, but they
Mm-hmm.
have a problem they're trying to solve, right? You didn't just break into their office and bother them in the middle of the day. Like they're trying to get a writer
Right.
for this project, or
Yeah.
they're
The
trying to find a
director.
movie in this
Yeah.
genre, right? So there is a need there, right? And so you might be fulfilling that need. Um, and uh, I used to work at a video game store, one of the jobs you do when you're trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And it was one of those stores that had these like stupid sales metrics that you had to hit, like sell so many consoles and sell so many games and warranties and all the rest of it. And I was terrible at hitting those kinds of things because, people are just trying to make their kids happy and I'm not in there to try to fleece them for every dollar they have. Just
I,
because,
I
the
feel you.
corporate place wants to make the metrics, right? But what I would do is I would genuinely talk to people about things I was excited about. And they would oftentimes buy a console or buy a video game or pick up a thing. And I was fairly successful at like, you know, moving units because I did it in a way that was real. Because I didn't like
Yeah.
tell people a thing was valuable when I didn't think it was. I wouldn't let someone buy a bad game if I thought there was a better game that would give their kid the best experience, right? They remember
Right.
that kind of thing. So I look at it the same way. Like I'm not selling, I never try to sell somebody a story. I'm not in there to sell. I'm in there to tell you a story. And if you like the story and you want to engage the story, that's great. I'd love to do that. But I'm never trying to sell you a thing. I just think that's kind of crude and gross. So you know what I mean? Like I want to share a thing with you that I'd like to see real,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm not trying to sell. Like
Yeah. Or I'd say what you're describing is probably what selling is supposed to be, because we all do have to buy something,
yeah, in a
especially if
perfect
it's
world,
if
right?
it like you know what I mean? Like you said, like you centered the executive there of like they have a job, they have a problem. They're trying to get a director or writer because we've all agreed, me pretending to be the executive, we've agreed
Yeah,
this is what we're gonna sell next summer to the public.
yeah,
This game, this is so I got a problem. Is Bryan E.
right.
Hill like the one with it? And the way you're describing from the video game example to the obvious example of pitching if yeah, I get what you're saying, like that sleaziness. But it's like if I were to be sold to, I think that'd be it. You're offering me a possible solution to like what ails me right now because I need to lock this in, and we want the best candidate. We want to make money. We want the audience to trust us that no, you can count on these stories, these games, these. This is what we do, and we get the best.
Well, that's the hip hop in me. It's like
Okay.
you didn't write the bars for the executive. Those are just your bars.
Yeah.
And you'll spit for the executive. But like it, those are your bars,
Yeah.
right? And if I was an executive, what I would want to see is I want to see who you really are. I want to see
Yeah.
what matters to you, right? I want to know what your bars are. I don't want you in there just shucking and jiving for me right now for 45 minutes. Like I want to know what you're about, right?
Yeah.
And and nobody wants to feel like you're only talking to them because they can say yes or no and you'd rather be anywhere else.
Right.
Nobody wants to feel like that, right? Nobody wants to feel like you're just a wallet, you
Nah.
know,
Nah.
you're just a check. So yeah, just keep it human.
Keep it
You know,
human.
like, people are gonna try to over prep you and stress you out and do all these other things. Like, don't let all that get to you. Just keep it human.
I love that. Bryan, this has been great. Um,
Right
do you,
on.
do you have anything upcoming that you're able to say like, oh, I'm excited about? Well, you got a little bit into it in the beginning. I don't know if there was any more you teased the people with.
Oh, well, I have, you know what? I've got some things to announce soon. I can't really like drop it because,
Sure.
people are always trying to line up their press releases. Just pay attention, just pay attention to me and I'll be announcing some stuff.
How do they do
But
that? That was the next thing I was going to ask. Where can people follow
oh,
online
I mean,
for
I'll be
announcements or
real.
whatnot?
Like I'm sort of on Twitter, but I'm like not really anymore because Twitter's kind of crazy right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
They
yeah.
wild out there. But I'm like I have Instagram is Bryan E Hill. I do have Bryan Edward Hill. That's my Twitter. I'm probably gonna start a Substack soon. So
I'll check you
like
out. I just
if you
got you
find me
guys
on
will
Twitter,
find
like
this.
then I can get
Yeah,
the Substack going or whatever. I'm
I'll
not
watch
gonna have
out
a
for that.
paywall.
Cool,
I'm not
cool.
going to paywall anything. I'm just going to have a place I can just drop things and talk about all the crazy people like get in the way.
Nice.
And yeah, and you'll see announcements and stuff as I'm able to share.
Fire. Guys, we hope that you enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed it. This was awesome. All the contact information for Bryan E. Hill will be in the description of the podcast video. If you want to keep up with my show here, all of my contact will be in there as well, including but not limited to Substack. I'm enjoying my time on Substack, still learning some things, and it's fun to be putting all this film talk with all my guests and everything on there and connecting and networking with people who want to be sharing and telling stories. So we've enjoyed this, guys, and we will see you on the next one. Be sure to keep up with Bryan E. Hill. Bryan, thanks again.
Thank you. Everyone be safe.